All right, well, welcome everyone, and I want to begin, as we always do, with a special psalm for the full and speedy recovery of Rabbi Steinsaltz, the author of our book. May Hashem bless him not just with the full and speedy recovery, but also with the ability to speak once again, fully without reserve, as he used to, and to continue to teach us through his books, through his speeches, through all of his communication. So what we have done now for quite a while, we've begun our class with Psalm 45, dedicated again to his full and speedy recovery, to his healing. Psalm 45 is a psalm that is connected to speech. So as we recite the verses of this psalm, we'll also pray for his speech to be completely healed. This is for Rabbi Steinsaltz, Rabbi Adin ben Rivka Leah. All right. Okay, so we're somewhere on page 76, I believe. Okay, so we were speaking about this idea that title of the chapter is called The Way of Choice, an Answer to Ethics. But the big idea that really, I think is one of the root ideas, we were just speaking about this in the previous class, that everyone is unique, and therefore everyone's goal is unique. And although we are rooted in 600,000 souls, if you remember that concept, then still every soul has its own unique purpose. Now the 600,000 souls are divided into many, many other souls. I don't know if we spoke about this, but the concept of reincarnation really touches upon this, and that is that when a person is reincarnated in this world, which is also not just a Buddhist belief, but it's a Jewish belief, and sometimes it's not his entire soul that is reincarnated, only the part of the soul that needs reincarnation, that needs to be rectified. So the 600,000 souls are also fragmented in their own way, creating many more derivatives, therefore many more human beings. So yes, we were speaking about this in a way, and that is that the person can look, the weaknesses that a person has are a good sign of what they need to correct. If there's a mitzvah that's very hard for me to accomplish, that might be a mitzvah that I do need to accomplish to be able to rectify that which needs to be rectified from a previous life. God is not going to make that mitzvah easy, because he wants you to prove that that's it, you can actually fix this thing that needs repair. So he's going to make it hard for you. So that's a good indication usually. And I think you have other indications, like, the general inclinations that you have. It usually draws the purpose of a person's life. So if I'm musically inclined, if I'm, kindness inclined, that's usually also a good indication of the type of life I must lead in order to repair that which needs repair from a previous life. So, but this idea of reincarnation really is connected to this idea that although we all come from 600,000 souls, root souls, Rabbi Steinsaltz speaks about, every soul is unique, has its own unique purpose, but even within every soul, there are unique purposes to each fragment of the soul, right? And those fragments, again, are encountered in reincarnations and maybe in other types, in other forms also. But that's the idea. So let's continue on, more or less in the middle of this page at least, of page 76. Some lives have an emotional emphasis. Do we all see that? Yeah? Okay. Does anyone want to read? Right, so let's stop here for a second. I want to connect this, by the way, to Rosh Hashanah that's coming up, as we all know, in a week and a half. But, the word for Shana in Hebrew, the Kabbalists explain, does not just mean year. It means shinui. It comes from the word difference or change. Rosh Hashanah. And Rosh Hashanah therefore does not just mean the head of the year, the beginning of the year, but it also means the beginning of change. This is another year, another change, another direction, or maybe another way of looking at things, another way of approaching things. So this connects, again, to what Rabbi Steinsaltz is saying, because there is no cruise control type of life where we are on cruise control with our character traits, on cruise control with the challenges or the general situations we're in. There's no such thing. Everyone has so many differences in their lives, so many changes, so many shinuyim in their lives. There are the massive changes, like the beginning of the year. Rosh Hashanah is a change, the head of change. That's what it means also in Hebrew. But there are also changes in each and every day. My morning is not like my afternoon is not like the evening. And really a person who can live a purposeful life, or maybe the ultimate type of purpose of a purposeful life, is a person who's in tune with those changes and knows exactly what is needed of him, why these changes happen. What is God telling me through these changes? And through those changes, we can also see how unique our lives is. no one has experienced the same changes I've experienced in my life, or even today. Forget about my life. Today, as any of you, as no one has experienced the change I experienced today. No one experienced the changes you experienced today. Everyone has different curves, different directions in life. The year that we'll each have will be a very different year for each and every one of us. That change, that shinui again, that Rosh Hashanah will be a different change. Will have its own direction, its own unique direction for each and every one of us. So that's part of the uniqueness of our calling, of the uniqueness of our lives. Yes, absolutely, yeah. That's one of the big exercises, to open our hearts to this change, to ask, what does God want of me? That great story that I think I've told about Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi. By the way, today is a special day. Today is the birthday of both the Baal Shem Tov and Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the 18th of Elul, Chai Elul. They call this in Hasidic circles Yom Uledet Shnei HaMeorot HaGdolim. It was the birthday of the two great luminaries, the two great lights. Baal Shem Tov, who was the founder of the Hasidic movement, and then 2 generations later, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, who's the founder of the Chabad Hasidic movement, but also the author of the Tanya, and is really one of the great luminaries of Jewish history. They were both born on this day. I'm saying that because Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi was once approached by a student of his, and he came crying and said, Rabbi, I need a blessing for this, and I need this, and I need this, and I need that. And Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi stopped him at one point and he said, it's all great. You need so many things. That's fine. But instead of asking what you need, have you ever thought of what you're needed for? Have you ever asked that question? And in a way, I think that's what Rosh Hashanah is about, right? We have to open our hearts, like you were saying, to what we're needed for, not just what I need. We're going to be praying to God, and we're going to say, God, please give me health, please give me success, please give me livelihood, please nachas for my children. It's all great. God is going to say the same thing. It's all great. That's fine. Maybe you can have them, maybe you can't. But if you ever ask what you need it for, that's the real question. And in a way, I think what we're needed for is answered by us listening to those different curves of life. Why did God change my appointment now? Not just my year, my appointment now. Why did He change that little detail? There's something in it for me that He wants from me. And that's the big question. And that's why I think Rabbi Steinsaltz is saying what he's saying here. We have to be in tune with all of the different levels of those changes. It's not just within. Everyone has different personalities that we've spoken about in the past. Here he speaks more about the outer changes, things that we have no influence over, that just happen to us. But they don't just happen to us for no reason. They happen to us for the reason of us living that purpose that God wants us to live. Okay, so that's that. Now, he also spoke of the inner struggles that for each and every one of us, it's different. The Baal Shem Tov, again, whose birthday is today, speaking of Rosh Hashanah, one day during one Rosh Hashanah, he all of a sudden left his shul, the shul where he would pray in. He left everything and he disappeared, and he went to pray in a different shul. People that were following him found that the Baal Shem Tov went to pray in the shul of the robbers of the town. I guess they had their own shul. And he stayed there until the end of Rosh Hashanah. And at the end of Rosh Hashanah, they all came to Baal Shem Tov and said, why did you go and pray with these people? Why did you stay in your own regular shul? And Baal Shem Tov said, it's very simple. When I was praying on Rosh Hashanah, I saw that all the gates of heaven were locked. And I said to myself, how am I going to open those locks? And I said to myself, in the village there's professionals who know how to open those, those gates wide open. So I went and I prayed with the robbers, and they opened all the gates of heaven for me. Now this teaches in a way so many things, but it teaches us this thing. Rabbi Steinsaltz, the Baal Shem Tov saw that these people had this inclination to rob. So he says, you know what? That could be a positive inclination. Let me use it for the good, to open the gates of heaven, to break open the gates of heaven. And in a way, that's what God gives us, all these inclinations. They're not necessarily negative. It depends how we use them. We can break open the gates of heaven also, if we can use them each in our own way. But again, we have to be thinking, why do I have this inclination? And how can I use it? What's needed from me? No doubt, I think that story also, right, like you're saying, shows the vision that the Baal Shem Tov had. He saw people. He didn't see the blemishes. He saw the soul. And he also saw the blemishes, but the way they can be channeled, and therefore they weren't blemishes at all. And I think that in a way, that's what the Baal Shem Tov, that's what Kabbalah in general, but the Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Steinsaltz brought to this world. They brought a renewed vision to our life. They taught us how to see people, how to see not just people, see places and see moments in a much deeper way, where so much more than what the naked eye sees. There's so much more soul, there's so much more potential. So yes, you see someone with an inclination to rob. That's a good thing, the Baal Shem Tov said. Let's go and break the gates of heaven open. Beautiful thing. Rabbi Levi Tzchak Berditchev, speaking each of our own different struggles, right? Like Rabbi Steinsaltz says. Some people it comes naturally, the service of Hashem. Some people it comes really with tremendous struggle. But Rabbi Levi Tzchak Berditchev, he was a colleague of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, 2 generations apart from the Baal Shem Tov, but also from the same tree. He was known to be, he was called the advocate of Israel, to always judge people favorably. There's many stories about how he would judge people, always find the good. But he was once approached by someone who said, hey, your student is like 75 years old. He was a devout Jew. All of a sudden left Judaism. He became like a heretic. How do you explain this? Rabbi Levi Tzchak Berditchev says, wow, what a special man. It took 75 years for the evil inclination to finally overcome him. He must be so strong. He withstood him for 75 years. That's the way he was able to judge in favor. But again, you see, each one has their own struggles. For some people, it comes naturally, and even at the age of 75, there's still no problem. Some people, it's 75 years of immense struggle. So, speaking of that is, even robbing can be good. It's a good segue to what Rabbi Steinsaltz is about to say here, page 77. I think that's a powerful, very Jewish idea. In Christianity, you have 7 cardinal sins. Some of them are what he quotes here: pride, greed, selfishness. These are cardinal sins in Christianity. We don't see them as cardinal sins. We see them as potentially good. And that's, I think, it's one of the great secrets of education. When we see our children with what we call negative qualities, why are we seeing them as negative qualities? They could be very, very good qualities. There's a great story about a young man who you all know of, but a young man who at the age had anger issues. At the age of 8, he was so angry that, I don't know if I've shared the story before, right? But he was so angry that he, why? Because his siblings were allowed to go somewhere, and his mother said to him, you're too young, you have to stay home. So he was so angry, he went outside and started banging his oak tree outside in his backyard to the point that his hands were bleeding. And finally, when he calmed down, he came back to his room, and his mother came and didn't say a word. She went and took care of his wounds and said to him, you should just know the Bible teaches, Tov erech apayim megibor u'moshel berucho milokei deir. One who is slow to anger is greater than a strong man, and one who's able to control his mood, moshel berucho, is greater than the conqueror of cities. This somehow made an impact on this boy that he decided to channel his anger, not to obliterate it, he couldn't, but to channel his anger, and he became a military man. Eventually, he became the military man that was responsible for D-Day. Who was he? General Eisenhower. He tells the story in his biography. General Eisenhower was a very angry man, but he channeled his anger in a good, productive way. So someone, a bad educator, could have told Eisenhower, hey, you're angry, stop with this anger, go to anger management classes, and until you do, don't come back. It's a terrible quality. No, it's a good quality. Go become a military man. In the right military, of course. But see, so that's another way to nurture. That's a Jewish way to nurture these seemingly negative qualities. And it's true the opposite way, right? The Talmud says, famously, it's been in Israel, this sentence has been overused so many times, but the Talmud has a beautiful line that says, which means that one who has mercy on those who are cruel will eventually be cruel to those who deserve mercy. Get it all mixed up. One who has mercy on those who are cruel will eventually become cruel to those who deserve mercy. In other words, if I'm merciful towards evil people, evil doings, there's no room for mercy there. Then my emotions will get so mixed up. Then when there is someone that I need to have mercy on, I'll be cruel towards that person. You get lost. Absolutely. So what the Talmud though is saying is what Rabbi Steinsaltz is saying here, that of course every quality has its own time, has its own focus, has its own dosage, right? They each need to be channeled in the right way. You have to know, if you're a merciful person, you have to know how to channel that. If you're a cruel person, that could be good also. Just channel it in the right way. If you're angry, what else did he say here? If the pride, selfishness, if you have those qualities, it depends how you channel it. Again, a little bit of pride, a little bit of selfishness is good. They say that about Mount Sinai. The Midrash says that the Torah was given on Mount Sinai. Why Mount Sinai? So that's because it was the smallest of the shortest of mountains. When God wanted to give the Torah in the desert, all the mountains came and said, you should give the Torah on me. One mountain said, because I'm the tallest. Another mountain said, well, I'm the prettiest. I deserve to have the Torah on me. And there was one short mountain that had no quality. It was very humble. So it didn't come up in front of God. God said, I'm going to give them Torah on that mountain because to teach you the virtue of humility. It's the shortest, the quietest. So the Bavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Steinsaltz, asked the question, well, if God wanted to teach us the virtue of humility, then why not give the Torah in the valley? That's the shortest. That's the lowest. There's no mountains are still haughty. Why not in the valley? And the answer is that that's in order to receive the Torah and to really be a recipient of the values of the Torah, we still need to be mountains. You still have to have a little bit of pride. You have to stand up for these values. If you're a valley, everyone will step on you and step on your values and crush you completely. A little bit of pride is good. Pride not for you, for the values you stand for. So you see, pride is also a little bit good. Depends how you channel it. Selfishness in a way is also very good. So depends, again, how you channel it. There's no bad or good quality. That's really one of the great revelations of Judaism, of Torah, of Kabbalah, of Rabbi Steinsaltz here. Say this also, I think that Aristotle said this. Aristotle would say, there's a great quote about Aristotle that says that it's easy to fly into ecstasy. Anyone can do that. But to know how, when, with whom, and why, that's a task that not everyone can achieve. And in a way, I think it's true for any emotion, not just ecstasy, that feeling. But we have to use every emotion in the right way. Even selfishness and pride, even those that are considered negative. There's room for them. We have to know how, when, why, with whom, etc. But that's the idea. Okay. It was called Mount Sinai. That the Talmud says, the Tractate of Shabbat, it says that it's called Sinai. Sinai, or Sinai. It's a play on words. Sinai comes from the word Sin'ah, which means hatred. Because of Sinai, anti-Semitism was created. In a way, it's saying that be careful with how you use those emotions, right? How you channel them. If you don't know how to channel them, if you let them overcome you, then they create such confusion that you won't be using them well in the future, whether it's mercy or cruelty. In general, it's related to one of the great pillars, I would say, of Hasidic teachings. That's the pillar of Moach Shalit al Alev, as they call it, to have your mind control the heart. Hasidic Rabbi Steinsaltz of Liadi teaches us, again, his birthday is today, but he teaches that we have to be kings. And God asked us to, Sinai, when God asked us to be a kingdom of priests, He asked us to be kings. If you look at the word for king in Hebrew, melech, it really stands for, it's an acronym for 3 Hebrew words. A melech is someone who has first mem, which is the first letter of melech, then lamed, and then chaf. What do these 3 letters stand for? Mem stands for moach, which is the brain, the mind. Lamed stands for lev, the heart. and Kaf stands for kaved, liver, or you can say the rest of the body. He says that's the order of that's the order of in a king. The king first has the mind. The mind is in control, then the heart, and then the rest of the body. If you flip those around, if you have Kaf, Lamed, Mem, then it's Klum. Then you have nothing. Then you're a nothing. It's harsh. But that's when. So again, if you don't know how to channel those emotions of mercy in the right way with your mind, of course, then it will create some confusion. Such a confusion that you'll become Klum. It's harsh. But in a way, I think it's very, very powerful. They say that's the difference. It's like Hasidic teachings. The Tanya teaches us that, again, authored by Rabbi Steinsaltz, but the Tanya teaches that that's God created animals and human beings the way He created them to almost demonstrate to us what the main difference is between us. See, human beings have their heads first, and then their hearts, and then the rest of the body. Animals, their hearts and their heads are on the same level. They have complete confusion there. There's no control. And we're not animals, we're human beings. Let's continue. I'll tell you this, Rabbi Steinsaltz loves animals. I like the giraffe for one reason, because just being around, I don't know why I'm saying this, but I have a picture of my house. So when Rabbi Steinsaltz was here a few years ago, I took him to the wildlife zoo. I don't know if you're familiar with that zoo. It's a zoo at the very end of Northern Avenue, not the Phoenix Zoo. And that's a zoo where you can be much more interactive with the animals. You can really come close to them. So I knew he liked animals. I took him there. And then we were passing by a giraffe, and then there was a eucalyptus tree right there. And he says, bring me some leaves. They love eucalyptus. And he went to feed the giraffe some eucalyptus leaves, which I don't think was legal in the zoo, but he did it anyway. So I have a picture of Rabbi Steinsaltz feeding the giraffe, but then the giraffe is bending its head. So I'll tell you what my favorite scene is. I remember watching the movie as a teenager, but it made an impact. It's when Andy, you all familiar with the movie? Andy is a banker who was wrongly accused of and convicted of murdering his wife, and he spends his life in this Shawshank prison. But he never adjusts to prison life. Eventually he escapes. But at one point, he breaks into the warden's office. But he breaks into the warden's office, and he goes straight to the sound, the PA, and he puts on, I think it was a Mozart concerto or something like that, to be played for the first time in Shawshank. All they heard was voices shouting at them. These inmates, since they were admitted to Shawshank, they hadn't heard any note of music. And here Andy comes, breaks into the warden's office, locks himself in, puts on the sweetest opera, the sweetest music, and he lies down on the warden's chair. And then you have the narrator, Red, it's Morgan Freeman. He says something like this. I'm not quoting word for word, but he says, for a brief moment, everyone in Shawshank finally felt free. And then, of course, the warden comes and tries, and he's still, yeah. But that music set them free. Even though they were in Shawshank, set them free. And in a way, in Rosh Hashanah, that's what we do, really. I think it's very much connected. We have to go back to the sound of the shofar, to the sound of our soul, to that music, to set ourselves free. We might be in our own Shawshanks, but when we connect to that sound, we're free. Anyhow, okay, bottom of 77. I think it's in chemistry you find that a lot, right? You can have something very small that can create a lot of havoc. Depends how you use it, though. It can also create a lot of good. Radioactive elements are like that. They can create a lot of good. They can create a lot of bad. Depends how you use them. Same with qualities. Qualities are like radioactive elements. They can create tremendous good and create tremendous destruction. All depends how you use them. How do you do that? I think it goes back to that discussion, all right, with your mach, with your mind. Your mind is able to calculate exactly how much of it is needed. Go ahead, continue. By the way, Rabbi Steinsaltz often says, in a way, I remember him saying that when I was in high school. I'm trying to remember the exact phraseology, but he would say to us, I want you to be wise, but not too wise. I want you to be God-fearing, but not too God-fearing. I want you to be good-hearted, but not too good-hearted. We would ask him why. Again, all these are qualities, right? He says, don't be wise, but not too wise, because if you're too wise, you'll become crooks. Don't be God-fearing, but not too God-fearing, because if you are too God-fearing, you'll become Catholic priests. Segregated and divorced from the world. And don't be good-hearted, but not too good-hearted, because if you become too good-hearted, you'll be womanizers or like sex addicts or something like that. Too good. Too like trying to love. That was his thing. And I remember that friend, who's a student of Rabbi Steinsaltz, Yoel Spitz, so he would tell Rabbi Steinsaltz, but you're very wise, you're very good-hearted, and you're very God-fearing. So, when what are we supposed to do? And Rabbi Steinsaltz would answer, yes, but I know how to use them. And I think in a way, that's what good midot are, right? Good measures. You have to know how to use your good heart, your God-fearing. That's the beauty, again, of the Hebrew language, right? Midot, qualities are measurements. Think about that. It's amazing. Okay, let's continue a few more lines. The good. So this reminds me of a very troubling passage in the Talmud. Maybe you can explain this to me, but I think this explains it quite well. And it says that, there's a verse that we say every day in our prayer, Yotzer or v'choshech, oser shalom v'et hakol, which means that we thank God for creating light and darkness, peace and everything. But the original verse is from Isaiah that says that we thank God for creating light and darkness. Again, the two opposites. And then good doesn't say, peace. It says, thank you, God, for creating goodness and bad. So the Talmud says, goodness, we know what it is. That's the good inclination. What's the bad inclination? What's the bad? The bad inclination. And then the Talmud says something astonishing. It says, but the bad is also called tov me'od. Very good. So the good inclination, goodness in this world, the good inclinations that we have are called good. The bad inclination can be called bad, but can also be good. Very good inclination. So in other words, we have in us a good inclination that's good, a very good inclination that's bad. So why would the bad be called very good? Tov me'od. And I think that's because, in a way, that's when it loses that control, when it breaks the barriers, it goes into the me'od realm, to the very realm, that's when bad becomes bad. I think that's what the Talmud is trying to convey here, that if I use something, if I'm too good at something, and it breaks those barriers, breaks those midot, those measures, and by losing its control, it can become eventually bad. Good is measured. Bad is not measured. Bad is me'od. And even if it's very good, but that very good implies the loss of measures, then it can become bad. It goes back to that statement in the Talmud of, you lose the focus. Your emotions are so confused that you already don't know, and then eventually it can spill into creating bad. Yeah, I think that, in education you find that a lot. If you say yes to your children when they deserve a no, you don't have that measure, then it can become destructive. Now you can say, well, I'm being extra good to them. You're not. Feels extra good, maybe. But it's not the mind telling you that that's extra good. It's your heart telling you that's extra good. So in education, you find that a lot. Find that in other realms too. Sometimes, it's interesting. The Talmud says, the Talmud Ethics of a Father says that we should not console a person in the depth of his grief, and one should not speak to a person while he's in the depth of his anger. Because when a person is in the depth of his grief, you can be present, but you can't try and speak to them. It's not. There's no room for your words. You have to know how to control, again, measure that quality of kindness that you may have. You may want to do that, but any word might just destroy right now. Same with a person who's extremely angry. If someone's extremely angry, if he's having an outburst, no word is going to calm him down. So I'd rather keep quiet. Maybe be there just to show your support, but nothing much you can do. You always have to measure those qualities. I would say that's another example. That's beautiful. So I'm asking that because it's also connected. You see, this is all connected to what Rabbi Steinsaltz is saying here, because the Tanya was written 300 years ago, but a little less. But Rabbi Steinsaltz also gives a nice tip. He says that people that have those issues of losing control, whether it's anger, whether it's he calls it lust, tava, lust towards food, they can't control themselves. So he suggests that, like before they eat, they should wait 5 minutes. Wait 5 minutes. Try and exercise self-control then. You're hungry, 5 minutes. And then you're angry, just you starting to flare up, wait a little bit. And maybe that also opens up the frontal cortex. And again, all this is connected to what we said, right? Moach, shalit alalev, the mind has to be able to control the heart and measure that quality in the right way. Okay, very good. All right. Well, now we'll know where we are because it's the beginning of that paragraph, page 78. It is easy to confuse. Are we on in 2 weeks from now? I think it's October 2nd, right? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. No, thank you very much. Thank you.